extremely fun. It's Sunrise with Craig Froenig right here on KCMX AM 880. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes. We want to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or go to kcmxam.com. Join in the conversation by calling 541-772-8255. Sunrise, where it matters what you think.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sunrise Show. 52 degrees out, about 7 minutes after the hour. It's going to be a cooker. I think this is going to be the first hot day. 89 degrees. Yesterday was, wow, really nice. Really nice. And I don't know if that 89 degrees agrees with you or not, but it's supposed to be even hotter tomorrow. A couple of days of weather kind of gets you tuned into what it's going to be like. Anyway, right now, enjoy it. Next up, and very excited to have in the studio, Lieutenant Bob Sergi with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. He's running for Jackson County Sheriff. And Bob, I want to welcome you into the studio. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good to have you. Well, you're running for the campaign. You've been in law enforcement for quite a while, 30-plus years.
34 and counting.
Yeah, and started in Long Beach, California.
I did.
I was just talking about that. City police down there, I was going, whoa, getting involved with Southern California crime and all the import-export. Immediately took me to Long Beach and, Terminal Island and all that kind of stuff. But you said, I thought, right, oh, yeah, Harbor Police probably. Right?
No, I was city police, and I grew up in Long Beach, and
it's changed.
My oldest brother was a police officer. My twin brother was a police officer there, and there was 3 of us on Long Beach PD at one time.
Wow, you got a twin brother?
I do.
Where's he now?
He's still down in Southern California.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you get to rub each other on whether it's changed, he should have left, or you should have left, right?
I think I got the
better end of the deal.
Better end of the deal on that one.
And I spent summers in Canoga Park.
Oh, yeah.
So back in the day where, the weather was beautiful and the palm trees, and it was just the best ever. And it's not that way. It is, but it isn't.
I still miss the beach part, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, you're 100 miles away from Oregon Beach, yeah. So running for Jackson County Sheriff, obviously it's tough to take on an opponent that's been in office for 12 years, and it's pretty clean record. Obviously there's some things, and you've seen it because you're in the Jackson County, office, Sheriff's Office. And I don't know where we start, whether complaints or things you see, and I guess when you saw something at some point, you thought, okay, it's time to do something about this. Tell me about that thought process of running for sheriff, because number one, he's your boss, and that's got to give everyone kind of a uh-oh, right? How do you address that?
Well, when I went back to the sheriff's office about 4 years ago, and started as the jail commander when I went back. Even back then, I started seeing things that I thought could be better. The leadership certainly could be better. The management can be better. The fiscal responsibility could be better. So I started thinking, as my career progressed through the sheriff's office, I saw things that just didn't add up. The way he treated the employees, a lot of it is through fear and intimidation.
Wow.
So, and I was approached by quite a few people to put in for sheriff when the election cycle started.
Right. So let's start at the jail. So the jail's a pretty interesting place, obviously. And citizens don't get the jail. It's a lockup. And we've got a lot of folks, revolving door. They hear that all the time. Going in we've talked to the judges and the judge candidates, and they said, oh yeah, they get sentenced, they come in, then they have to be released, early release. Is the jail? How many beds now? It's up to what, 662, I think.
No.
562? Am I? Anyway, they just added 60 beds, but I mean the bed capability at the Jackson County Jail. Do we know yet?
The actual bed space is around 345. Before the expansion, it was 283.
Okay.
We had a cap of 230, and that was from some litigation that was and a deal that we made with the courts to
because they have to
have a cap on our bed space because of the overcrowdedness, and the 230 and maybe up to 240 works for the deputies because you have to have a certain amount of space to move
right
inmates around. Their height maintenance, either medical or they can't get along with the other
extra
inmates.
Space in case something goes
Yes.
on. You've got to move them around, right?
Yes,
So you've got to leave. You got to have some working room for the deputies that are in the jail. Okay, and they just added that lower floor when they moved everybody out to White City, and so the jail. I know the jail has been not a stigma, but it's been an issue. I mean, because it is a very tough place to work, right? And doesn't really have any growth. Now they've been able to bring that lower floor into and get 60 plus beds. So that's got to help quite a bit.
Well, we just opened it, and it should help. But the programs down there should help also. The community justice is going to help out with that. Up until now, we don't have any type of programs, but there will be some sort of programs down there, and so that should help with the revolving door aspect, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and here's the next thing is releasing so many criminals, and you've got to be your eyes wide open related to these other counties not having the law enforcement that they need, knowing that it's going to fall on Jackson County, knowing that good law enforcement officers are going to be there. It's forcing the hand, and the numbers are just coming up. It's like everyone else's boat is flooding, is taking on water, and here's Jackson County.
And the Joe County is a perfect example of not funding a jail
right.
or law enforcement, and what happens. The OSP for the most part is taking care of the county and Joe County, and their hands are tied. They pretty much have to cite and release 80% of the people they should be taken to jail. And now Grants Pass, they had
Unbelievable.
Put $1 million to the jail to house their prisoners. And I think what I last heard was that they're not going to do that again.
Yeah, they had a bond measure to rebuild the jail. The jail was paid for by 2007. I mean, whatever. And then now they're not funding the staffing of the jail. Go figure. I can't believe it.
Well, I really think that Joe County needs to think about, and this is the citizens, think about where they're at and how to resolve those issues. And they're going to have to face it that their low tax base is not paying for their services, and they're getting
what they deserve at this point. Yeah.
Well, they're I don't know if they deserve it.
Well, that's a little strong. Yeah, they get what they pay for.
The consequences are there.
That's what I meant. They get what they pay for.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
we've got Lieutenant Bob Sergi in the studio this morning. He's running for Jackson County Sheriff. We're going to continue our dialogue. We've got to take a quick little break, and we'll come back. Bob's running for sheriff. His website, bobsergiforsheriff.com. So stay tuned. More on the Sunrise Show. We're just getting rolling. Hope you can hang in there with us.
Stay tuned. Sunrise will return in a moment on KCMX News Talk 880. A little bold and extremely fun, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. on KCMX AM 880. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes. Here's Craig.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 18 minutes after the hour. Glad you're with us this morning. National Jazz Day, International Jazz Day as well. And we've got Lieutenant Bob Sergi in the studio with us this morning talking about the race for Jackson County Sheriff. And, Bob, talked about the jail, your jail commander over there, and then kind of moving through and deciding that something needs to be done. Were there improvements that needed to be done in the jail that you just weren't seeing, or you weren't getting the support? I mean, what was the first tip-off that, hey, I've got to do something about this?
The jail staff, they're very professional and dedicated, so it really wasn't staffing or personnel issues. It was more support issues. The Winters treats the jail more like a redheaded stepchild and makes appearances that are infrequently at best. So
they feel they're being left out. I mean, do they feel on their own?
A lot of that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The staff can only do what they can do with what they have. With a 230-bed capacity and the way the system is set up, there's people that we have to hold. We can't force release, parole violations, people sanctioned, and Measure 11 type stuff. So some of the people getting out are the nuisance people that need to be there for a certain amount of time, like Medford Municipal.
Right. They should just be there to chill for a while.
Yes, and a lot of those cases where those guys are coming in and out, almost on a daily basis, it would help if we could hold those type of people longer, because they do a lot of things out there: nuisance type crimes, criminal mischief, theft, trespassing.
Now they're just taunting the system, right? They just know they're going to. I mean, they know that if they don't wield a gun or any big serious crime, they can in and out, and they're not they're not fearful of it.
No, and sometimes they'll come in and we'll all be getting out because you guys are overcrowded. They know when they're coming in the back door that we're not going to hold them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the overall budget, I mean, this is the next thing, because Jackson County, we're hanging on by our fingernails with the county budget, and then do you think the sheriff's budget is big enough? Do we have enough money, or you think you need more to do more things?
I think we have enough.
Okay.
We need to do it better with what we have. Okay. There's a lot of, in my opinion, wasteful spending. When you spend $1.5 million on a satellite communication system and $150,000 on a security system in Shady Cove, and then a bunch of other stuff that's not necessary or needed or wasteful, I think we can do a lot better job with what we have.
Interesting. Well, I wanted to talk to you about, because this article came out Sunday. Pretty tough language. I mean, I wanted to make sure that you got your just say on that. I mean, you said the only one you're not the only one inside the sheriff's office who's fed up with Winters' style of leadership, and you mentioned culture change, that Sheriff Winters rules by intimidation and fear.
That's absolutely true.
So does he? I don't understand.
Right now,
I've never seen that before, so I wanted to find out what that meant.
Right now, many of the deputies are afraid to openly support me, and it's because they fear retaliation, and that's the simple truth of it.
Okay. So if they were to step up and say, "Hey, I want a different boss," what does the existing boss do? I mean, that is a tough spot to be in.
It is for them.
I mean, think about a company. If you had a corporation, and how would you openly support a separate manager to take over for CEO? You'd think the CEO would get a little testy with you. He'd call you in the office and say, "Is there a problem? Is there something you're not telling me?"
Well, there is there is a problem, and the deputies realize it. The leadership is not there. The direction is not there. The communication is not there. And, just the 66 layoff notices, that the deputies took that, for what it was, and that was a threat because it was, they believe, a tactic for negotiations.
Yeah, and I want to get into that because that leads into this vote situation. And I want to tell listeners as well, we're going to hold the calls until the end of the hour so we can get through as much of the dialogue and question and answer that we can. It's mainly part of the debate series that we've got going on, and we just want to be respectful of that. So you're welcome to send in questions, Craig at radiomedford.com. We'll be reviewing those as they come up. And then if we'll have time for some calls, we'll try to get that in. But we may not have time for calls. So get your emails in now, Craig at radiomedford.com. We'll try to get those questions in just as quick as we can. So this 66 layoff notices and the budget, but there was some arbitration because there's balanced budget issues and people aren't used to having a balanced budget, but that he had to somehow negotiations with the JCSEA, which is the Jackson County Sheriff's Employee Association, and this was back in January on that vote that was taken. Is that based off of, how do they, is it raises and income and things like that? Why the vote and why the 66 layoff notices in the sheriff's office? And they didn't happen. So I'm wondering, I know that there's contract law about having to balance the budget and give the union so many days notice, 28 days notice or something like that. But related to this vote, this is pretty interesting. The 52%, out of the 130 people, 100 were present and 52% voted for you. So basically 52 of the 100 voted for you. 29% or 29 people voted for Deputy Chief Corey Falls. And then 15% didn't vote, or 15 people, and then 4% voted for Winters. So you wonder what that represents. I'm having a hard time correlating all of that. If they're in the union and there's huge issues going on with negotiations for a new contract. So if the contract didn't go the right way, then that obviously wouldn't make Winters a favorite guy. Would they vent on Sheriff Winters? That's what I'm not understanding.
The problem was during the arbitration period when the arbitrator was trying to decide which way to go, and Oregon law says the arbitrator has to pick one side or the other. He can't mix the contract language.
Okay, right. He has to take one contract to the other. It's either all or nothing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So during this arbitration period, that's when the notices came out, and the union, the association, they felt, and I think it's probably accurate, is that it was a tactic to get the arbitrator to decide for the county in fear that 66 employees were going to get laid off. But the vote for support came well after that happened.
Oh, okay. All right. So I just wondered because I know listeners are having a hard time putting this all together because this is interesting and it tells, and I'm just wondering if it's you follow the money. One of the mantras on the show is follow the money. You'll get to the real issue. And I wondered related to this vote and how this all went down, related to an arbitrator. How would Sheriff Winters have anything to do with the arbitrator? The arbitrator is in third party, right?
Arbitrator should be a neutral third party. That's correct.
And did you feel that there was some leaning there? Or, of course, you can't prove it, so what do you do there, I guess, right? Leaning toward the vote toward the county or vote toward the Sheriff's Employees Association. I don't know.
By the arbitrator?
Yeah. He only ended up siding with the county, so
that's correct.
So whatever that the Jackson County Employee Association wanted, they didn't get.
Right. The association felt that the 66 layoff notice was a tactic to kind of force the arbitrator to decide for the county to save jobs.
Interesting. Okay.
Well,
I know that there's a deadline for the budget, that the budget has to be. Right, the Sheriff Winters has to put his budget in by a certain day, and if he doesn't have his budget put together, then what does he do?
Well, the contract negotiations had been going on for a couple of years. In fact, they're already negotiating. They just settled that last October. Now so it's a 2-year contract. So in fact, it may be a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So they just finished that one. Now they have to start again because this one ends June 30th. And so a new contract should be in place by July 1st.
Yeah.
That's
So-
probably not going to happen.
Right. So, what date? June 1st?
July 1st.
July 1st. Okay. So, do the sheriff deputies, I mean, are they supported? I mean, it seems to me like they've got quite a bit of equipment. I mean, they seem like they're outfitted well. I mean, there's different divisions. I mean, Marine Division, Patrol, obviously jail, all that kind of stuff. But and administration, things like that. But I mean, detectives and the canine and the search and rescue, and it seems very deep. I mean, I want to get we've got a break coming up in about a minute, but it seems like the sheriff's office is very vested in all the different departments. But I wonder, they seem like they have enough equipment to do the job, right?
They have enough equipment to do the job, but some of that equipment is obsolete, and especially the technology part of it. We don't even have enough computers in the cars now to replace the obsolete ones.
Really? So we need more computers in some of the patrol vehicles.
And we've known about this for 2 years, that the computers were going to be obsolete now.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because everyone's finding out now that if you don't replace your laptop or your PC every 2 years, you're going to be behind.
No, it's even more than that. They were telling us those particular computers were going to be obsolete because of the new communication systems coming in. So they should have planned for that, and they didn't.
Interesting. We've got Lieutenant Bob Sergi in the studio this morning. He's running for Jackson County Sheriff. Stay tuned. We got more coming up. We got to take a news break. We'll be back. More on the Sunrise Show, getting into all of it right here on the debate series on KCMX.
Stay tuned. Sunrise will return in a moment on KCMX News Talk 880. We want to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or go to kcmxam.com and go to the Talk to Us tab. Send us your thoughts. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 33 minutes after the hour. Glad you've tuned in this morning. We've got Lieutenant Bob Sergi in with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and he's a lieutenant in the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and jail commander, but he's running for Jackson County Sheriff. And so we've got him in the studio talking about it, one of the three candidates. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're going to have all the candidates in. And Bob, thank you so much for coming in this morning. And we talked about, the jail, the situation there. We talked about the union and the vote and why you secured, 52% of the vote. There's about 130 members, but 100 of them were there, and about 15 of them did not vote. Any idea why they did not vote? If they're in a employees association meeting and you think a vote's coming?
I want to make two corrections. I'm not currently the jail commander.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I am a lieutenant.
Okay.
Assigned to corrections. The 15%, there was 4 choices on the ballot, and one of those choices was no endorsement for anybody, and that's where 15% voted to endorse nobody.
They just chose to
There was quite a few that didn't vote at all, but about 100 of the members did vote.
Okay. So I just wondered, there were, of the 130 members, they knew a vote was coming. They chose not to show. 100 were there, and then of the 100 that were there, 15 of them did not vote, or they chose no endorsement.
Like I said, there was a 4th choice. There was Winters, Falls, me, and then endorse nobody.
Interesting that they had to openly endorse. Now, are their names on the ballot so they're know who?
It was a secret ballot.
Okay, so it wouldn't be intimidation, is what I'm saying. It wouldn't be some kind of if they vote for anybody, they're going to get in trouble. So so odd that they wouldn't vote if it's a voting quorum or they're there to vote on the issues. Why wouldn't they fill out? So they don't want anybody.
Having 100 people out of 130 or 40 actually vote in this day and age is actually pretty good. You know,
Yeah.
I was the president of the Fraternal Order of Police for many, many years, and just to get people involved is a struggle.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
and that's true for cops also.
Right. Well, I just wondered, this is a rather large call to order to vote, and it just was interesting because a lot is hanging on this figure. That's why I wanted to know. Of the 130 members who are part of the association, only 100 came. So the folks that didn't show, didn't vote, didn't want to vote. I get that part. They just couldn't make it, conflict, anything like that. And then the ones that were there, 15 did not vote. So and then of course 4% for Winners, 29% for Quarry Falls, and 52%. I just wanted to try to validate that vote number.
Well, the interesting number that someone pointed out to me the other day was that 96% of the voting employees do not support Winners, and that's a powerful statement right there, to say 96% of your employees don't support you. That is.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, I just don't understand that, because I've seen the sheriff's office. We have deputies come in on a regular basis. We've got all of these departments that seem to be expanding. You know, the Marine Patrol Division seems to have their equipment. The Search and Rescue seems to have their equipment. I mean, you're in the office, so you would know better than I, but I mean, new vehicles, the federally, I mean, all of the workings of the sheriff office seems like it's intact. And what I've seen, very professional. And I'm not seeing a complaint for lack of gear. And then this brand new sheriff's office out there in White City, on the highway, and all of the assets as things start to really develop to provide support for all the employees, and then they're not happy. And you're leaning toward low morale and things. And I'm not seeing that. So I wanted to find out, what am I not seeing?
Well, certainly when 96% of the employees that had voted say they don't support you, there's an issue there. You have to see that. And a lot of the things you're talking about, like the Marine, those are funded by the state Marine Board.
Okay, so all the boats, all the boats they get.
A lot of that is, yes. A very large majority of that is funded by the state Marine Board. The Search and Rescue, a lot of that equipment came from Title III money. So the Title III money is drying up. And those are all volunteers out there, except for a couple of paid employees. So you have to hand it to the Search and Rescue volunteers. They're very dedicated. They enjoy what they're doing. They take the training seriously. They take their job seriously. But they're volunteers and they're non-paid. The rest of the stuff, on the surface, we all the patrol people have their cars to take home. But those cars are getting old, and we're going to need to replace those. And at this point, it makes sense to keep the cars the way they are. We've already done that capital outlay for the initial buy for them, and so replacing them every once in a while, instead of driving them for miles, is at this point a better option.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. I just wanted to check on that. And then related to things that you would do in the sheriff's office, in the voting pamphlet, you talk about the things that you would do as sheriff in the first 6 months, and add sergeants and at least 4 deputies. Is there money for that?
We don't need any extra money for that.
Okay,
we can do other things with what we have and put more deputies out on the street.
Okay. All right. So we've got the money within the budget for the sheriff's office to
Absolutely.
put sergeants and deputies out. Okay, great. Allocate for more detectives.
That's going to be a tougher battle, because
that would take more funding.
It probably will, but these guys, they're overworked. Right now, we don't have anybody in the detectives other than 2 part-time detectives. One works about 500 hours a year. One works about 1,000 hours. Those are the only guys investigating property crime. like burglary, theft. And, the county is rife with like thefts, like metal thefts and
Oh yeah.
thefts of farm equipment, all that sort of thing, burglaries. So all those go uninvestigated because the detectives, the sex abuse detectives, the deputy MEs, the detectives handling crimes against persons, they're overloaded. There's no way they can keep their caseload and effectively investigate those types of crimes and then do proper crimes on top of that. So a lot of that is going uninvestigated. So I heard someone say, I think it was Winter, say the solvability rate is 80% or something like that. And that is...
See, now that's what I want to get because, in fact, we have, Medford Police Chief Tim George on a fairly regular basis, and he talks about closure rate on the different crime categories. Right. And that's what he focuses on is the closure rate.
Right.
And I'm wondering where we're at. There's numbers related to the sheriff's office and, related to how many calls for service are there, and then, closure rates in the different categories for the different crimes. I think that'd be very interesting to see. And then also related to the amount of calls, service calls. I'd heard that they've gone up. So I don't know what service. Yeah, yes, and I don't know what they are.
Well, calls for service are just about anything that someone calls 911 or the regular call-in number, and they want a police response. That's the calls for service, and it could be anywhere from a crime in progress to a barking dog issue.
Right. So closure rates, that would be interesting. I've not heard or seen closure rates within the sheriff's office related to the different types of crimes. Because I know they're dealing with a lot of crime. I mean, it's drugs and burglaries and thefts. And
well, the drug issue, we don't have a drug unit. We have one detective assigned to Madge and a half-time clerk assigned to Madge from the sheriff's office. So we virtually have nobody working street drugs in the county. Madge is supposed to do that, but...
You mean dedicated? I mean, because obviously deputies do. They would work that, but just strictly drug cases?
Yeah, the street dealers or the dealers that are in the county. Now, Madge will work those when they get to them or when their investigation leads to there, but a lot of their time is spent in the city. We could use a couple of narcotics detectives just for White City,
right,
and be effective. And so there's a lot of things that we're spending money on that should be focused to law enforcement, not
the peripheral things. You're talking about the
satellite communication system. Winters talks about
spending... Was any of that federal money, that satellite communications at all?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
Now, the security system in Shady Cove, that was paid for by HIDA money.
And HIDA money?
Well, that's the...
HIDA money. What is it? Drug?
That's an acronym for the drug seizure money. Yes.
Okay, HIDA money. Okay, gotcha. All right.
And it's true, you can't spend that on personnel, but we should be spending it within the sheriff's office for new computers that need to be replaced in the cars.
Yeah.
We can spend it for training. We can spend it for surveillance equipment for the deputies to use. We can spend it within the sheriff's office, and there's a great need for it. We don't need to spend it on a school security system that, frankly, doesn't work.
It doesn't?
No, it was...
I've seen the video. I thought it worked pretty good, but it doesn't work related to what?
We had some active shooter training back in, I believe it was in March, and the system was tested. There was a lot of things wrong with that system that Shady Cove is a bad place for communications. And so when you're talking on a portable radio and trying to talk to the Tactical Operations Center at 62 in Vilas,
right,
it doesn't work that well. And
so there was it cell phone service and things like that, or just radio?
Radio service.
Yeah.
our repeater system needs to be upgraded. The current communication system we have, we're going to that narrow band radio frequency, and that is not what it should be. So our communication system, when you get in outlying areas, could be a lot better.
Yeah, no kidding. Bob, we have a quick little break. Let's do that. Okay. And come right back. We've got Bob Sergi in the studio this morning talking about the sheriff's office and the race for Jackson County Sheriff. We want to talk about that as well. And, there's just so much. We're going to run out of time. We're going to try to get to your calls. I don't know if we will or not, but you can definitely get the calls addressed to the email, craig@radiomedford.com. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Sunrise will return in a moment on KCMX News Talk 880.
It's time for the Springtacular Sales Event at Hertz Car Sales. We continue to receive huge volumes of rental return vehicles that will be sold to the public, all with spectacular savings. In addition to our amazing inventory of nearly every make and model, our inventory will be growing daily with the arrival of hundreds of rental return vehicles. It's all brought to you by a name you can trust, Hertz.
Joe Tate here from Hertz Car Sales in Medford. We know it's a funny name, but our Springtacular Sales event is all about serious savings. Our inventory is some of the best that I've seen. Cars, trucks, SUVs, all with clearly marked savings. Plus, you're working with good people that are backed by Hertz, the name you can trust. Stop in today. See the best inventory, experience, service, and find the biggest savings all in one place. Remember, the Springtacular Savings event ends April 30th.
Don't miss the Springtacular Sales Event going on right now, but only for a limited time. Hertz Car Sales of Medford and online at hertzmedford.com. The better way to buy a car.
A little bold and extremely fun, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. on KCMX AM 880. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes. Here's Craig.
Good morning and welcome back, everybody. 48 minutes after the hour this morning. Glad you are with us today. Really glad. We're doing our best to get the issues out to the listeners and the voters. We want to encourage you to vote. Yesterday was the last day to change your registration for voting, and now just a matter of getting your ballot and paying attention to the issues. And this week, part of the debate series, we're covering the Jackson County Sheriff's race. And Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're having all the candidates in. And, of course, Lieutenant Bob Sergi is in with me right now. And, Bob, thanks so much for coming in. And we're talking about outfitting the deputies, having all of the assets and making good decisions. And I know your language has been awfully strong in the Tribune. But I'm trying to go off the website and the voters pamphlet. And for anyone who wants to check that, it's bobsergiforsheriff.com. And, just really, I guess, a difference in philosophy, maybe, huh?
Leadership philosophy,
leadership,
yes.
Yeah. Well, and, it's based on crime, and I know that the Sheriff Winters has said, how much services do you want and how much money you want to pay. And I know that, in fact, we're going to have Commissioner Doug Bridenthal in the studio coming up at 8. And, the budget and how much is given to the Sheriff's office, I know it's been difficult. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of good response from the Sheriff's office. And now it's just a matter of doing better, I guess, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have enough deputies? I mean, 2,800 square miles, over 200,000 people. Do we have enough deputies? Do we need more personnel?
We need more patrol deputies, absolutely, and that's what I've been saying all along.
Okay.
That we have cut back on patrol, and that was totally unnecessary to do.
Sheriff Winters says his traffic team has reduced fatalities nearly 50%. But is that just better use the deputies are just doing more, or we still need more deputies on top of that to continue that figure?
The traffic deputies are traffic deputies. They will answer calls for service, but the large majority of their time is spent for traffic enforcement.
That's patrol division, right?
Well, they're assigned to patrol division, yes.
Yeah, okay.
at one time they had their own supervisor, their own sergeant, but they don't have that anymore. In fact, we're lacking sergeants in patrol. We're lacking patrol deputies in patrol. But and I'm not sure where the 50% reduction in fatalities come from. It's and how much of that you can correlate with our traffic enforcement. A lot of our traffic enforcement is daytime type stuff. I think we should focus more on getting those guys out there during the nighttime hours when the deuces are out there. There's in the annual budget, it says that we have an 87% decrease in DUI arrests. I'd be embarrassed to put that in my annual budget because we know that DUI driving is not decreasing by 87%. We just need people out there to try and enforce those type of laws and get those drunk drivers off the street. We don't have that right now. The patrol guys are going call to call to call. They don't have time to do proactive enforcement. The traffic guys work during the day for the most part. That's not when the drunk driver's out there. We need those guys out at night till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and we had that really sad head-on with Karen, Greenstein.
Absolutely, and
horrible.
To put in your annual budget, we had 87% reduction in DUI arrests. We can do a much, much better job, and we should be.
Yeah. Well, Bob, glad to have you on this morning, and of course, I know it's a tough race. You're out there campaigning. What are folks saying when you're talking to them? I mean, you've got. I've always thought, and I saw this in Josephine County. I always thought, well, is it an issue between the city residents talking about the law enforcement bond in Josephine County? Is it an issue between city residents who have city police who aren't afraid versus county residents? I couldn't ever tell. And then when it went down, when it failed, I went, wow, okay, so did county residents not vote, or what happened there? And I'm wondering that same kind of thing for sheriff here in Jackson County, where you have the townships and they have their police departments. They're not really concerned because if you get 911, you're not going to get a Jackson County Sheriff deputy. You're going to get Medford Police or wherever you might live, Ashland, Talent, Phoenix, things like that.
Well, I think Jackson County citizens are more engaged in that than what they are in Joe County, and it's more than just taking money out of their pocketbook, because the citizens of Jackson County realize that they need law enforcement. But the feedback we're getting is that they are engaged. There's a lot of things that are said. Very few people that we've come across say that Winters is doing a good job. In fact, there's a saying that we developed, ABW, anybody but Winters.
Wow.
And that tells you a lot. So there's a large majority of the citizens of this county think that we need a change in the sheriff's office, and I'm going to give them that change.
Wow. Okay. I've always wondered. I mean, from what I've seen, Bob, what I've seen, always been professional with the deputies and the department heads, as they've gone through departments, and I was actually I was able to. One of the deputies said, Craig, you'd be a good candidate. You ought to come out and do the Citizens Academy. I went, wow, really? So he told me about it. I said, you know what? If you call, I think you could get in. So I went ahead and called and got in, and every Tuesday night or whatever it was for like 8 weeks, 10
right.
weeks, I think it was.
I think it's 10 weeks.
Yeah, and I was very impressed. I mean, first off, the folks in the room giving the presentation, they didn't know who I was.
Right.
They didn't know that I could come in the next morning. And of course, at that time, I was in production on the show, but I wasn't so much behind the microphone. And I watched each of the different departments. I was very impressed with the professionalism of the law enforcement, how hard they work, and the constant vigilance that they have of doing a great job in whatever it was, search and rescue, the detectives, the crime scenes, the canine handlers, all of that. So, and even the jail kind of talked about and the crime. I mean, people don't understand, and the ride-along, they don't understand how much crime is going on in Jackson County.
No,
They're
they don't.
kind of asleep at the switch, aren't they?
Absolutely, and you know, ignorance is bliss, and citizens don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I've said this all along, that we have a professional, dedicated staff. They just don't have the leadership, and the management skills aren't there for this agency. We can do a lot better job with the resources we have, and that's the bottom line. The staff, they're great. They trust me, they respect me. That's why I got the 52%.
Yeah, you know, relationships is a big deal, and I'm sitting here thinking, and you know, it's okay to disagree. It's just not okay to be disagreeable. That's one of the things we say on the show a lot, and we invite listeners of both sides. We want to hear their comments about it. In our last minute, before we go, first I want to thank you, Bob, for coming in, and
Thanks for having me.
you know, relationships is a big part
It's
of
huge.
being Jackson County Sheriff.
Absolutely.
And it's just interesting to see. Do you think there's been better or less relationships with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and the region? Is there more or less?
When it comes to citizens relationship, it's terrible, and that's one of the things I'm going to change. We don't have a line of communications with people that want to voice their opinion, their concerns, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
You know, my plan is to start the town hall meetings again, and I intend to do that.
Good deal. Bob, thank you so much for coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Bob Sergi, Jackson County Sheriff's Office. He's running for Jackson County Sheriff. His website, bobsergiforsheriff.com. We'll be back.
Thanks, Greg.
Start your day off right. Catch the sunrise on KCMX AM 880. Sunrise, where it matters what you think.